Okay, guys, we'll be with you in just a second. I'm just trying to get my microphone up, so give me just a moment. It's rebooting. So we'll have the main view up in just a second. Okay. We are now live. Awesome. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Okay. All right. Happy graduation day. Does anybody have any questions before we get started? Any questions on anything?
I have a question about the partial bed bath.
Okay.
I noticed that there was I was rewatching the video for that, and I noticed that there was somehow I miscounted the amount of washcloths.
Okay,
I
so
think you reused one of them for.
yes, so washcloths get very confusing. I know. So here's the thing. Okay. Anything that we apply soap to, any washcloths that we physically spray with soap, those can't go back in the basin because that gets our water all soapy and then we have nothing to rinse with. But your rinsing washcloths can be reused. So anything that you use to rinse, you can reuse again to either rinse or you can put soap on it to wash. So with partial bed bath, you can do it with 4 washcloths. One for the face, that gets set aside. Remember, doorways, we don't want to spread pathogens. So the one for the face, that gets set aside. Then we're going to do one to wash the front of the torso. That gets soap on it, so we can't put that back in the basin. And then we rinse the front of the torso. That one, we didn't put soap on, so we can reuse it. And then we turn the patient over, we wash their back, and we rinse their back. So it can be done with 4 washcloths. You can also use 5.
Okay.
There's no checkpoint that says only got 4 washcloths. They're just grading what you're doing with the washcloths. Are you washing? Are you rinsing? Are you drying? But the problem is, I want you to know how to do it with the fewest supplies possible. Because when you get out there to work, you're not always going to have as many supplies as you want, or sometimes as many supplies as you need. There are a lot of CNAs out there that hoard supplies. They go in for their shift, they get their report, they go into the clean supply cabinet, and they take everything they think they're going to need for their shift and either hide it somewhere or put it in the rooms or whatever to make sure that their patients get taken care of. Well, what does that do for your patients? So I want you to know how to do these with the fewest supplies possible, just because I don't know what your day is going to be like out there. So if you've got 5 washcloths available, use them. It's great. If you don't, you can do this with 4. Does that make sense? Just remember that any rinsing washcloths can be reused down the road. Okay. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. The easiest way to remember supplies for the test is if you're washing a small body part like one hand or one foot, it's 2. 1 to wash, 1 to rinse. Everything else for the test takes 4. So hand and nail care 2, everything else 4. That's just an easy way to kind of remember your supplies. Good? Great question. Any others? Any others?
I have a question about the call light. How do you know that is your patient?
So call lights, every place is going to handle this. I forgot my mic here. Hold on. Every place is going to handle this a little bit differently, depending on your facility. Okay, because there's a million ways to handle call lights. So some facilities, let me just straighten this out. Hold on. Some facilities Hope I'm not blowing your guys' eardrums out. When the call light goes off, you'll see a light above the room. Okay, so there's like a red flashing light that, and it beeps. So as you're walking down the hallway, you can kind of look to see, who's flashing and where's the beep coming from. So that you're going to find that in older facilities mainly. So, of course, if it's your room, then it's your call light. Other facilities, newer facilities, may have a centralized station where all the call lights go to the centralized station, and then they notify you because you have a facility phone on you. So the facility phone will ring. So call light goes off. Good morning. Call light goes off. It's your patient. It goes to the central station, and then they call you and say, hey, room 212 needs you. So that's another way that it can be handled. And then the newest facilities actually have wearable technology that will tell you when a call light is going off and where it's located. So there's a lot of different ways that this might be handled, depending on the type of facility that you're working in. But I do want to talk about call lights for just a second, though. You're responsible, CNAs are responsible for answering call lights. It's a big part of what we do because most of the time that call light is going to involve taking care of some task that is what CNAs do. Usually call lights are, I have to go to the bathroom, I'd like something to eat, I'm uncomfortable, I need reposition, I'm cold, my TV remote is on the floor and I can't reach it. Those are all things that CNAs handle. Now, occasionally call lights might be used for I'm in pain. Well, again, that's still a CNA call light, and we're just going to pass that on to the nurse. In general, nurses aren't going to answer call lights. In a perfect world, they do, but we don't live in a perfect world. So usually they're going to wait for the CNA to answer the call lights because 9 times out of 10, it's something we do anyway. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I personally answer call lights when I'm out there because that call light might indicate an emergency. And if the CNA is tied up with another patient and this patient is having an emergency, it doesn't do anybody any good to ignore it. So as a nurse, I, whenever possible, answer call lights as well because you don't know what's on the other side of that call light. But if I'm in the medication room trying to check out medications, that's a very thought-dependent process. I've got to make sure I'm typing the right things in and that there's no medication errors and I'm checking it out appropriately. So I don't want to stop what I'm doing when I'm working with medications or starting an IV or something like that to go run and answer a call light. So a lot of the nurses' tasks are things that are very difficult to interrupt. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if I'm available to answer call lights, I will absolutely do so. And a lot of nurses out there will, and there's a lot that won't. But if I'm in the middle of something, answering a call light might not be in our best interest because that's where errors can occur. Does that make sense? Now, I am going to tell you something about call lights. Theoretically, there is no such thing as my patient and your patient. They are all the facility's patients. So if I'm walking down a hallway and pass a room with a call light off and it's not my patient, I'm not assigned to that patient, that doesn't alleviate my responsibility to make sure that there's no emergency happening. Okay, even though it's not my patient, I should still stick my head in and make sure there's no emergency happening there. Do you know the worst place to have a heart attack? Do you guys know the worst place to have a heart attack? In the hospital. That's right. You would think it's the best place, right? You're right there. It's the worst place to have a heart attack because call lights are not answered promptly. Yep. Call lights are not answered promptly. So it's actually the worst place to have a heart attack, because everybody in the hospital, you're there for, I don't know, a gallbladder surgery, right? They're not thinking cardiac. They're thinking gallbladder. In our medical society, unfortunately, we started compartmentalizing people to their most important maladies. So if you're there for a broken leg, I'm not thinking about anything else. It's the broken leg. If you're there for high blood pressure, that's, what I'm going to be focused on. So when the call lights go off, remember, heart attacks happen. Strokes happen. They happen in all settings all day long. So we have to treat every one of those call lights like it's a potential emergency. 99% of the time, it won't be. I need a cup of water. I want a blanket. 99% of the time, it won't be. But that 1% of the time counts. And if we let the other 99% jade us and stop paying attention to those call lights and just let them go off and I'll get to it when I can, that's when really bad things happen. So that happened in our community. It wasn't a heart attack, though. Let me tell you this story. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. Horrible. It's happened in one of our local nursing homes. There was a patient who had, on the rehab side, was there for, I don't know, hip replacement or something. I don't know why they were there. I can't remember. But had esophageal varices. Now, these are varicose veins in the esophagus. And it happens usually when you have long-term liver disease, because pressure builds up and it enlarges those veins. And now you got all these big veins on the inside of your eating tube, right? So the patient, for whatever reason, was told soft diet. Well, the patient had somebody go get some chips out of the vending machine, ate the chips, and those chips actually cut up those esophageal varices. So he's got bleeding down into his stomach. Now, the stomach does not like blood. It doesn't digest blood well, and it tends to send it back to wherever it came from. And projectile vomiting is common. Now, this looks like a Hollywood horror scene when it happens. So the patient's not feeling right, hits the call light, nobody comes. He starts throwing up blood, and I mean throwing up blood, and hits the call light, and nobody comes. He starts screaming, help, help. And everybody else in the nursing home is screaming, help, help. So nobody pays attention. So the roommate who's witnessing all of this, can you imagine? Witnessing all of this is hitting the call light too and yelling, help, help. My roommate needs help, help, help. Nobody came. Now, this is about 10, 11 o'clock at night. So smaller staff, not as many people there. And the nurse that was working on that unit hears banging on the front door, because they lock the doors after a certain hour. Banging on the front door. She goes out there, and there's EMS there. There's cop cars, ambulance, fire truck. I mean, the whole brigade is there. And she says, what's going on? Why are you here? And the emergency people said, you've got an emergency here. She says, no, I don't. I'm the one working here. There's no emergency. I would be the one calling. And they pushed her aside and went in, and they went into the patient's room. The roommate had called 911. Now, there's no need for a roommate to call 911 when we have a nurse right there. So they got into some trouble over that, and rightfully so, because the whole purpose, and you have to go back to, why is a patient even here, right? So let's talk about a rehab for a second. Why is a patient in a rehab? Why do patients go to rehabs? Why don't they just go home? What's that? Why?
They're trying to regain and recover the ability that they lost or whatever.
Okay, so they are unable to care for themselves, right? If they were able to care for themselves, where would they be? Home. So these are people that are unable to care for themselves. So if we understand that, we understand that every call light, it has a purpose. That we've got to stop looking at them as nuisances and take each one seriously. Over time, it's very easy to get very jaded with call lights and start overlooking them. Be careful with that, because every call light could indicate an emergency. If people start to realize that they're not getting the care that they're supposed to be getting by going into a facility, they'll stop going to facilities. And then what happens to your jobs? Call lights are important. Call lights are the only thing that separates you from home. Does that make sense? It's the only thing that separates a facility from home, is the ability to call for help when you need it. Good. So on the state exam, if you have a call light question, and you probably do, your answer is to answer the call lights promptly, even if they're not yours, to make sure that there's no emergency. Now, if I walk into a room, it's not my patient, I know nothing about the care plan, I can't help them, right? I can't get them up to the bathroom because I don't know what their mobility care plan says. I have no idea. So I can't help them with a routine task, but I can make sure that there's no emergency. So if I'm entering a room that's not my room, I don't know the patient, I will ask the patient, is there an emergency here? And if they say, yes, I am in pain, or yes, I have to pee, or something like that, I can say, I would love to help you. I'm not familiar with your case. Let me go get the person that is. 1 second. Now the patient feels like at least somebody is aware of their issue, and they're not just sitting there waiting for somebody to acknowledge them. And then I'll go find whoever it is responsible for that and say, hey, your patient in room 330 needs to go to the bathroom. I don't know their mobility, so I can't help them. Okay, good. Makes sense? Any other questions? Okay, call lights are a hot button topic for me. I've seen a lot of, when I go into facilities, I actually look to see how long it takes people to answer call lights. Last time I was in a facility, probably about 6 years ago, when I walked in, the call light was on. I did what I needed to do, and the call light was still beeping. And I left, and the call light had still not been answered. The whole time I was in there was probably about 45 minutes. That's insane. If that person had been having an emergency, they're probably dead now. And how bad are we going to feel going to the family and going, yeah, they must have had an emergency, but we were just too busy to check on them. Those are the things that keep Morgan & Morgan in business. Okay. Let me get your scores. Isabella. For chapter 10? Okay, do you have 8 and 9 for me? For both? Kiana? Julia? Jay?
For chapter 9 and 10, it's 90 and 100.
Thank you. Erica? Sophia? Victoria? Thank you. Christine?
85.
Can I get 7, 8, and 9 from you as well?
I don't have those.
Okay, that's fine. Cleonta? Thank you. Autumn? Thank you. Chloe? Adriana? Thomas?
90 on 10 and 100 on 8 and 9.
Thank you. Lisette?
8.
Thank you. Janae? Can I get 8 and 9 from you as well? Thank you. Jamar? Thank you. And Salith? Thank you. Congratulations. Yep. Congratulations. I've got your prize over there. All right. Let's see who is joining us today. Oh, my goodness. Wow. Lots. Okay. Oh, congratulations. Good morning, Miss Patty. I passed my exam. Thank you so much for your channel. Congratulations to you. It helped me so much in the little time I started watching. Oh, congratulations. We're so proud. Julia. Okay, Julia. When you can you see me? Okay. So when you come to the retail store, bring your yellow book to the scrub shop, and Jacob will give you the folder from today from graduation. So just return your yellow book and pick up your folder at your convenience. Okay, Tamika had range of motion, bedpan, and feeding. All right, so Alexa says, for the partial bed bath, why is perineal area not included? Is this just for the skills exam that they don't include it? That's a great question. So in a clinical setting, you're probably going to be assigned to give a bed bath, head to toe. You know, wash what they got. But for the test, partial bed bath is already 19 minutes. That's right. Where do those evaluators want to be? Yep, that's what it all boils down to. If we've already got 19 minutes for partial bed bath, and if you remember, pericare was 17 minutes, right? So if they gave us that whole body to wash, yeah, that's like 30, 40 minutes. You know, they don't need to see all that to judge your ability to adhere to the standards that we've learned. And that's really what they're looking at. They don't care how clean this mannequin gets. Trust me, she's not moving around a whole lot. Okay, she's pretty clean. It's not about getting the body clean. It's about showing that you know the steps. That's what it's all about. That you know to check the water temperature and ask them to check it. That you're going to protect the sheets from getting wet. That whatever you wash, you rinse, and whatever you rinse, you dry. And you know a process that keeps you from cross-contaminating from one open body part to another. That's what they're looking at here. So they can see that on partial bed bath just with what we're showing them. They can also see those same steps on pericare by what we're showing them. So they don't need to see both of those together. But in a clinical setting, yeah, you're probably going to be asked to do the body. Okay, good. So sometimes, depending on the patient, sometimes we just hit the high points. Okay. So there's a way of saying this. It's a little crude, so bear with me. But the pits, tits, and dangly bits. Okay. Those are the high points. And then there's other times that we're going to do the whole body. It depends on what's going on with the patient, their energy level and stamina, what they have planned for the day, their activity level. There's a lot of things that go into it. Does that make sense? Okay, great question. Okay, good morning, Vanessa. And Vanessa says, can the patients throw something at the door or bang the wall? Yeah, you can. I would. I would. And is a hospital different with their call lights? Every place is going to handle this a little bit differently depending on the age of the facility and the technology that they have available. So here's a question. What if the patient's legal guardian calls a CNA or a nurse and they are too busy? Do you still help even if you're not the patient's nurse? Again, you're going to want to make sure that you're addressing emergencies. Anything else would have to be relayed to the treating team, just because you don't know enough about that patient to effectively help them. True. Most agencies in real time give CNAs 12 to 24 patients. CNA can be the only one on the floor with another patient who will keep the CNA. Now, this is a problem. You're absolutely right, Maya. So let me talk about that really quickly. Time management is the name of the game.
You got a lot to do and not much time to do it. Even if you're working 12-hour shifts, there's a lot to do. And patients, a lot of times, are going to need some emotional support. So they will talk to you and they'll want to keep you in the room. And that effectively reduces your amount of time of being able to care for other patients. So you're going to have to learn techniques when you get out there to make sure that their needs are being met, but figure out how to get out of the room pretty quickly. And this is a talent that you have to develop. There are times I get stuck in rooms. I mean, there's no way around it. There's times you're going to get stuck because patients will talk and talk and talk and talk. That's a need that they're having. And usually it's because they're very anxious over whatever's happening with their body right now. And this is how they're processing it. So I try to be as supportive as I can, but still exit the room in an appropriate time frame so that I can go care for other patients. But I don't want to make this patient feel like they're second on the list. So you've got to find ways of approaching this. And I will ask the patient, it sounds like you want to talk about this. This seems like it's on your mind. I'd be happy to talk about it as soon as I get my morning rounds done. I'll be back in about 45 minutes to an hour. So think about what you want to say, and I'll catch up with you then. And it gives them time to kind of organize their thoughts, and then they're not so rambly, and they can kind of think through what they say. So it still makes them a priority, but it allows me to exit the room to do the things that I need to do. Does that make sense? So you'll find your own ways of doing this. But usually leading off with something like, it sounds like this is something that you really need to talk about. That acknowledges that you understand why they're doing this. I have no problem throwing social services in as well. Sounds like you really need to talk about this. I'd be happy to have social services come in because they're really good at problem solving. So, yeah, I've got a team and I'm not afraid to use it. It doesn't all have to be done by us. Good? Make sense? All right. Let's see here. Family especially. Yeah, you're right. Family especially will try to keep you longer. Yeah. I'm not going to address this. Why does the doctor take forever to diagnose a situation? That has nothing to do with us. I will say something though, because this does affect you guys. Do you understand that we call it practicing medicine? That's the term. We're practicing medicine. We did not master it. Nobody has mastered the human body. Nobody. When the aliens invade, maybe they've got it figured out, but nobody here on planet Earth has mastered the human. I can't look at you and immediately tell exactly what's wrong with you. We hear your symptoms. We look at the tests that we think about running. We may not run the right test the first time. We just try to match up symptoms and tests with diagnoses. But there's no magic 8 ball that we can shake to say, what is this person's problem? Man, if you could invent one, you'd be good to go. But it is a guessing game. So we need to understand it's an educated guess. That's why the doctors go to school, to get all of that education, to put all of those pieces together and maybe figure out what's wrong and have an idea of how to treat it. But we don't always get it right. Now, you guys need to understand that. We don't always get it right. Now, if you're the patient, that's probably going to cause you a lot of anger and frustration. I've had this problem. Nobody's taken me seriously. And that may come out in how they interact with you. Because remember, you're the ones that are dealing with the patients the most. So understand that this mindset, and that's why I'm going to talk, this mindset Why do the doctors take so long? Why didn't they order the right test? Why do they not know what's wrong with me? All of that may come out in how the patients deal with you, because you're the face of medicine. You're the ones in the room. Understand they have a right to their frustration. It's frustrating. It's scary. And we can be there and listen, and we can say, I understand how that must feel for you. But you can't solve that problem. And please, no matter what you do, don't try to form a connection with a patient by saying, oh, I know exactly how you feel. My sister had this problem, or I had this problem. We often try to form connections with other people through shared experiences. So telling a patient, oh, yeah, I know exactly what that means because I had, the patient does not care how many people have had XYZ. They care about them. So sharing your experiences does not help you in a clinical setting. In fact, it can actually alienate the patient from you. So try to keep your experiences and your family's experiences out of your conversations with patients. This was a horrible situation, but I do, on that topic, I don't always talk about this one, but oh my gosh. There was a CNA who the patient had a terminal condition, was on hospice or considering hospice. The medical community had pretty much run out of everything to offer, exhausted all options. Patient was now making some very hard decisions. And the CNA that was helping to care for the patient in this transition period actually said to the patient, yeah, I wouldn't take that medication that they're suggesting for you. My mom took that medication. It didn't do anything. She was dead in 2 weeks. Now, there's a whole lot wrong with that statement. First of all, we don't give medical advice. We never should say you should do something or you shouldn't do something. That is nowhere in that scope of practice. We do not give medical advice because your patient doesn't understand your role, and they will take whatever you say to heart. You are giving medical advice. The second problem with that is the experience that your mom had has no bearing on her experience. Just because your mom had a bad experience doesn't mean that this one's going to work out the same way. So sharing that had no bearing on it. But the third thing is that you have absolutely taken all hope away from this patient. Yes, she was dead in 2 weeks. What kind of message does that send to that patient? Oh, all hope is lost. Go sit in a corner and die. I'm done with you. I mean, that's really what you're telling them. So we have to be really careful about the words we choose to use here, right? A little bit of tact is good. All right. All right. So let me get my little handy box here. Let's move on into today's lesson. Okay. Last class. Did you register yet? To the background? Okay. If you have not registered for the test, you need to. Don't put it off. I had a phone call last week from somebody who took my class 4 years ago and never went and took the test. Life got in the way, and now they need to go to work as a CNA, and they're going to have to start all over. And she called and said, am I allowed to re-enroll in the program? Yeah, you can. You can also watch a live stream. That will help, refresh you. But, I like you guys, and I'm very proud of you, and you've come a long way, but I don't want to see you back here. Go out there, get your certification, and go to work. They need you out there. Don't put it off because you're unsure if you're going to pass the test. You're ready. You are ready. Okay, you are ready. All right, so page 171 is what we're going to be talking about today. Once you get certified, you need to figure out how to keep your certification. And that's going to be a process. This is what we call the renewal process. Okay. Sorry, I got a dry throat. So the renewal process is a little different for every state. So I'm just going to focus on Florida. That's where we are. If you move to another state, you're going to need to learn their renewal process. But in Florida, we actually get a blue card, certification card, a physical card that is mailed to you about 5 to 7 days after you pass the test. On that card, you're going to see your expiration date. It is not based on when you test. You need to understand that. It is not based on when you test. Every CNA in Florida expires on May 31st. Half of the CNAs expire in odd years. Half of the CNAs expire in even years. I don't know which group you're going to be in because it has nothing to do with when you test. I believe it has to do with your social security number, actually. So if you become a CNA and you work for a couple years and then you let your license lapse, you don't renew. And 10 years later, you take the test again to become a CNA, you're still going to be in that same group. Okay. So the group never changes. Once you're a part of that group, whether you're active or not, you're in that group. Good? Makes sense? So when you get your certification and you look at your renewal date and you figure out when that is, then you're going to have to renew before that date. Now, they're going to send you some stuff in the mail that says, hey, it's almost time for renewal. Make sure you've got everything done. So they'll kind of keep up with you, as you go. But there are 2 requirements to be able to renew. So I'm going to show you a video that goes through what those requirements are and how to get them to make sure that you understand this whole process. This video is available on my main website under After Certification. So in 4 years, if you can't remember what this process is, then you can go watch that video. Around April, I start getting phone calls. I get as many as 50 phone calls a day. How do I renew? And I tell them all, go watch the video. I'm not going to go through it on the phone with you. So you've got this video available to you. We're going to watch it here today. Okay, where is it? How to renew your Florida CNA certification, a guide for Florida CNAs, brought to you by foryourcna.com. After you pass your state exam, you will receive your certification card in the mail. This card gives you valuable information. Take a moment to look it over. Check your name and address to make sure they are correct. Make a note of your CNA certification number. You will need this for employment and in-service credit. Your certification also comes with a convenient wallet card. Sign this and keep it in your wallet for handy proof of certification. But one of the most important things you need to pay attention to is the expiration date. It will be located near the top of the blue card in the grid. In Florida, CNAs are divided into 2 groups, odd year group and even year group. Everyone in the even year group will renew their certifications in even years, such as 2018, 2020, 2022, and so on. Everyone in the odd year group will renew their certifications in odd years, such as 2017, 2019, etc. When you become certified, you will join one of these groups. But which group you end up in has nothing to do with when you test. You will be assigned a group when you receive your first certification, and you will remain in that group even if you allow your certification to lapse and you retest later in life. So how do you know when you will have to renew? It's easy. Check your expiration date. Every certification will expire on May 31st, either in an odd year or an even year. You need to know which group you are in. This is Jenny. Jenny became a CNA in 2017. She was placed into the even year group, so her expiration date will be in even years. She is joining a group already in progress, so her expiration date will be the same as theirs, regardless of when she became certified. Everyone in this group has the same expiration date. So, do I have to take the test again? No. As long as you meet all the requirements and renew on time, you will never have to take the state boards again. In order to renew your CNA certification in Florida, you must meet 2 requirements and pay a small fee. You must work at least once as a CNA for pay in this renewal cycle. You must complete the required number of in-service hours and pay the renewal fee. We will look at each of these in more detail in the following section. In Florida, every CNA is required to perform nursing-related services for monetary compensation within the renewal period in order to renew their certification. That means they have to get paid to do CNA skills. This rule is in effect to ensure that CNAs are using their skills so that they do not forget what they have learned. But there are no specific amount of hours that are required. But be careful. If you are not currently working in healthcare as a CNA, you may not be able to renew. But there is a way. Follow me to see Jim's story. This is Jim. Jim became certified as a CNA in 2016. Jim planned on going to work in the local hospital after he became certified. But Jim's uncle needed help at his bank and hired Jim. Jim likes his new job at the bank and he's doing very well there. He doesn't want to leave the bank, but he wants to keep his CNA certification active. He worked hard to get it. One of Jim's bank customers, a supervisor at the local home health agency, mentioned that they were looking for weekend CNAs to care for some of their new clients. Jim immediately filled out an application. He was hired and now works only one Saturday a month. Jim kept his regular job at the bank, but still met the requirements for renewal. Jim will keep one of his pay stubs for proof of the work requirement. Now let's look at the second requirement, in-services. In Florida, continuing education courses for CNAs are called in-services. You must complete a certain amount of continuing education every renewal period in order to renew your certification. You must complete continuing education in-services in certain topics every renewal period. These will include bloodborne pathogens and infection control, domestic violence, medical record documentation, resident rights, communication with cognitively impaired individuals, CPR skills, and medical error prevention and safety. So remember your expiration date on your certification. You need to compute how many months you will have that certification to determine how many hours you need. You will need 1 hour of in-service for every month that you are certified. First, locate the date that your certification was issued. Then locate your expiration date. Count the number of months that you will have your certification in this certification period. So if this certification issue date was January 1st, 2017, and the expiration date is May 31st, 2018, there are 17 months of certification. This certification will be valid for 17 months before renewal. So this certification will require 17 hours of in-services for renewal. Once you have done your required topics, the remainder of the hours can be in a topic you choose. Choose topics that relate to your work environment or an environment that you want to work in. The topics you choose are entirely up to you, and the choices are endless. In-services can even help you if you want to change jobs. How? I'm glad you asked. Let's say that you currently work in a dementia unit. But then your friend tells you about a job opening at a local hospital. You've never worked in a mother-baby unit, but you really want this job. You can complete in-service topics related to this new opportunity to show motivation. This shows that although you lack experience, you are willing to learn. Supervisors like that. Now that you know how many in-service hours you need for renewal and what the required topics are, you need to find out how to get them. Most workplaces require an orientation session for new employees. Some employers will give you in-service credit for completing these modules during orientation. In-services can be awarded for watching videos, classroom instruction, formal group discussions, or even self-study at home. This is a great interview question. Do you offer in-service training hours? In-services can also be awarded for topics discussed in monthly workplace meetings. Sometimes hospitals and other community agencies will host continuing education opportunities. These are often advertised online or in community newspapers or bulletins. But for many CNAs, the easiest way to get your required in-services is online. There are many online in-service providers. Each is structured a bit differently, but most have some sort of free trial. Simply search for CNA In-Services Florida in your favorite search engine. If you are unsure if the provider you want to use is recognized by the Board of Nursing as an approved provider, you can check them out on CE Broker. Go to cebroker.com. Under Course Search, select your state and your profession, and then click the Begin Search bar. Now click the Providers tab to access a list of approved providers. You can also search for courses right on this website. So far, we've learned how to work at least once as a CNA for pay this renewal cycle, and we've learned how to complete the required number of in-service hours. So all that's left is to renew and pay the fee. The bottom of your certification card contains the information you will need to renew. Your specific renewal instructions are printed here. Once you access the website listed on your certification card, flhealthsource.gov, click on Renew a License. After logging in, follow the prompts, check off the requirements, and pay the fee. Renewal can take less than 15 minutes to complete as long as all of your requirements are met. You will sign in with your username and password on your certification card. You do not have to send anything to the Board of Nursing to prove that you've met the requirements. You only need to send proof, which would consist of a pay stub and in-service certificates, if the Board of Nursing requests them from you. You must keep your proof for at least 4 years after renewing. Never, ever lie on your renewal. The Board of Nursing does periodic audits. The penalties for lying on your renewal are severe. Make sure you've met all the requirements before completing your renewal. You now have all the knowledge you need to renew your CNA certification in Florida. Remember to look at your new certification card for your next expiration date. Until then, happy caregiving. All right. Any questions on renewal? Any questions? Make sure that you keep up with your continuing education. Most people usually wait, if you're going to renew in May, they wait until like April and just get it all done at one time right before renewal. And that's okay. You can do all 24 hours at once. Even though it says 24 hours, usually most continuing education doesn't take like a whole hour for an hour credit. So it's not unusual for people to cram them in. Just make sure you don't renew if you don't have your continuing ed. Because if they catch you, if they audit you and you can't produce the certificates and they catch you, they will revoke your license. You'll never get it back. Okay, so they take that pretty severely. All right. So that whole video can be seen on our main website under After Certification. The video is there for you to go back and review. This is a copy of your blue card. You'll see the expiration date there circled. The next question that I get a lot is what happens if I want to move out of state? So every state handles renewal a little bit differently, and I'm not going to go over all 50 states. So you're going to have to look up your renewal requirements for that particular state. But if you want to move out of state, the process to transfer your certification is pretty simple for most states, not all. Let's say you want to move to New York. You call up New York Board of Nursing. I have all the Board of Nursings here on page 172. Call up the Board of Nursing in New York. Say, hey, I'm a Florida CNA. I want to be a New York CNA. And they go, cool. Fill out this online form. Do our background check. Background checks do not transfer state to state. So you'll have to get a background check there as well. So they'll say, fill out our form, do our background check, and pay us a fee. And we'll give you a certification here too. It doesn't supersede. So you don't have to give up Florida to get New York. It's going to be added to. But remember, you're responsible for renewing in all states that you're certified in. A couple of years ago during COVID, travel CNA became a really big thing and they could make a lot of money. It's now starting to die off a little bit. I'm seeing a lot less travel opportunities for CNAs. And that kind of makes sense. Remember that CNAs have to learn the patients. We're responsible for knowing when things change so we can report those changes. If you have a new patient assignment every day and a new facility every day, you have no idea what's normal for those patients. So how can you report anything abnormal? So I am not a fan of travel CNAs because I think that things get missed. Does that make sense? However, I do know that it's still a thing. So it is an opportunity for you. But if you're going to be traveling, you have to get a certification in every state that you want to travel to. Please be very careful here. There are a lot of scams on Facebook groups going around. I'll get you a multi-state CNA license. Click here. There is no multi-state CNA anything. Every state is independent. So I know 3 people that have gotten caught. One of them for $300. Sent the person $300 to get a multi-state, and it doesn't exist. It's a scam. Be careful. Okay. So all you do is contact the state you want to go to. Tell them I'm a Florida CNA, want to be a CNA in your state, and they'll tell you what the process is. Now, there are a few states that it doesn't matter what you have or where you've come from or what education you've had. You're going to start from scratch in their state. They're going to require that you go through their training and testing and certification. You'd want to know that before you move there. So start this process before you move so you know what the expectations are. All right, let's talk about finding a job. Chapter 10 went over this quite a bit. I'm not going to talk about it for very long, but there are a few things that I do want to point out to you, things that you may not have paid much attention to in the reading. Finding a job in healthcare is a little bit different than finding a job in other industries. And the reason for that, so last year I had an opening for a store clerk. I was going to hire somebody to help in the store. And I went on to all those jobs boards, you know, the ones that you guys go on to search for jobs. I figure, well, if people are searching for jobs there, I'll advertise my job there and, you know, maybe I can find somebody. Well, as I started looking into it, I knew that employers had to pay to post job openings. I knew that, but it surprised me how much it cost to post a job opening. For me to put my, you know, just minimum wage store clerk job up there, it was going to cost me to just to put it on 3 of them about $500 a week. Yeah. That's crazy. So now let's think about, so I ended up putting a sign and putting a Facebook post, and that was free, right? So let's think for a second. Let's just think for a second about healthcare. In healthcare, there are openings all the time. No facility is 100% staffed. So if I have an opening all the time, and it's going to cost me about $500 a week to staff, you know, just to get applications, that's a whole lot of money for not a lot of return. Does that make sense? So a lot of the opportunities that exist in healthcare, you're not going to see on those jobs boards, just because it's one of those industries that is always hiring. And it doesn't make good financial sense to post every opportunity on an online jobs board. Does that make sense? So we can use online jobs boards, yes, but just remember, it's not going to reflect all of the opportunities that exist. There may be a few in there, but not all. Before you start looking for a job, though, you got to figure out, where is it that you want to work? Yeah, some of you might want to be in the hospital. That's a possibility. But don't discount some of these other opportunities as well, because you might find something that fits your personality better in a different setting. So that workplace personality quiz that we've talked about a couple of times, this is a good time to start thinking about this, because it will help direct you where you really want to focus your employment opportunities. Anybody in here take this yet? So what did it give you? Hospital. Okay, very good. Very good. So it will help narrow it down to the right setting for you. Once you've figured out where you want to work, then you can start your job search. It's not a good idea just to apply to everywhere, because you might get a job, absolutely. But if you get a job that doesn't work for you, you're going to be totally unhappy and you're probably going to quit. And not only will you quit, you'll probably quit healthcare. The first job you get in healthcare will determine how likely you are to progress in healthcare. And if you get a bad pick the first time around, you'll leave the industry, which means that all of this, yeah, I don't want to see you do that. So make sure you take the quiz, figure out where you want to work, and then you begin your job search with that setting in mind. Now, you may not be able to find an opening in that setting, and then you can look at another pick. That's fine. But try to match up the facility that you're looking to work for with what you expect. You'll have a much better opportunity for success if you do that. So we have a lot of online jobs boards available. You know, we know them all: Indeed, Monster, Simply Hired, Career Builder. Snag a Job, LinkedIn, and I Hire. These are the most common online jobs boards, but I want to pull one in particular out. This is one that a lot of people don't know about. This one right here, USA Jobs. It's not one that most people know about. The government hires healthcare people. There's a lot of opportunities in healthcare working for the government, but the government does not advertise on any of these other jobs boards. They advertise on their own. USA Jobs. So state-run correctional facilities, that's going to be on there. The VA is going to be on there. Home care for disabled vets is going to be on there. There's a lot of opportunities in healthcare, especially like, all these immigrants that are coming over. There's opportunities there in healthcare as well. So there's a lot of opportunities within our government, and government gives good benefits, guys. Usually a pretty good wage too. So this is one that most people don't ever think about, but it might be a really good place to start your search. Good? Good? Okay. Oh, while we're on the subject, Okay, how about working in different countries? So usually CNA does not transfer for immigration purposes to other countries. Most countries, in order to immigrate, you have to have a skill that's in need, that their current population is having difficulty filling. Basically, they need you, right? So in America, we're a little bit spoiled. We get to go state to state. We don't have to declare anything. We don't have to go through any process. If I want to move to Georgia, I can move to Georgia. Other countries handle this a little bit differently. Other countries, they have to need you to consider you. And in most cases, CNA training is pretty short, pretty easy, low cost. Their population can fill that need. So it's not usually used for immigration purposes. Okay. But you can check country to country. I have no idea about all the laws of all the different countries. So feel free to check into that yourself. But in general, it's not transferable. So when I looked at all the online jobs boards, it costs money, varying amounts of money. Some were a lot of money, some were a little bit of money, but they all cost money. So if we understand that every single one of these is going to cost money, we're not going to see all of our opportunities there. So where can we look to find opportunities if they're not going to be on these jobs boards? The number one place that you should go is their website. So let's say, like you got hospital. That's going to be your best place to work. So we have 3 hospitals in our county. I would go to the website for each one of those hospitals and look for CNA positions. Every hospital has its own website. On the website is going to be a jobs or careers tab. They advertise on their own website for free. They own the website. So this is a great way to find opportunities that may not be listed other places. But this isn't limited to just the hospitals. Nursing homes, assisted living facilities, home care companies, most of them have some sort of website presence now. I mean, let's face it, we're in 2024 now. Most of them have an online presence, and this is actually where you're going to be submitting your application anyway. So it's a good idea to go directly to their websites. So each website for each place, let me talk about this real quick. Let's say you go to the hospital down the road. I won't say the name, but the hospital down the road. Go onto their website, and they have 3 openings for CNAs, each on a different floor. So they have med-surg, ortho, and PCU. Okay, a CNA position in each one of those. If you apply for just the med surge one, that's the only person that's going to see your application. So ortho and PCU, they're not going to see your applications. When you apply online, it only goes to that one department. So if there are 3 openings, how many applications should you submit? 3, 1 for each position. They don't share. Now, it's important that you understand what happens after you submit that application, though. It does not go to the hospital, does not go to the hiring manager. When you put that application in, you type in all your stuff and you hit send, that application goes to a third-party human resources company. They're not at the hospital. These are not medical professionals. Their job is to look at the job description and your application and see if they match. If they match, they will forward your application on. If it doesn't match, they toss your application and you don't get notified of that. It's just silence, no response. So when you're filling out an application online and it says BLS required, you don't want to put on your application that you're CPR certified. Even though we know that CPR is another name for BLS, that human resources department does not. So your application has to match the job description exactly. Copy and paste. Okay. It's the only way to get past the filter to get to an actual human. It may take you 3 or 4 times applying before you actually get through. So if you apply for a job and you don't hear anything, next week, apply again. The following week, apply again. Keep applying for that same position, changing little things here and there to see if you can get it through the filters. Okay, good. I have a lot of hiring managers that come in and they're like, my gosh, I've had this opening for 4 months. I haven't gotten any applications on it. And I'm like, oh, you got applications. They just got caught in the filters. So they need you, but you've got to kind of get over the hurdles that they put in place. Okay, good. So apply often. Apply for every position that you think you might want to work in. And I've made this easy for you. If you go onto my website, foryourcna.com, this is just for my local people, just for my local people. If you go to foryourcna.com, under after certification, the first thing you're going to see there is local employers. When you click on that, it takes you to a page that looks like this. Again, the workplace personality quiz is linked in there for you. But I've listed all of the hospitals in our area, all of the nursing homes, all of the assisted living facilities, all of the home care companies. Everything is listed here, but it gets even better than that. Because if you click on one of these, it goes directly to their website, the careers or jobs page of their website, and when possible, the CNA job listing page on their website. So I've done all of the hard work for you here. All you have to do is click, go through, look at the openings, and apply. Okay. You see how easy I make this stuff for you? All right. So if you aren't sure where you want to work, these websites can get really, really time consuming. So there's another way to do this. And Google, Uncle Google is helping us out once again. I love Uncle Google. They make everything free. So remember that every website on the planet is crawled by Google. Their bots crawl every website. Google knows everything about every website everywhere. If you go into Google and you type in CNA job opening Spring Hill, every website out there with a CNA job opening in Spring Hill will be displayed here with Uncle Google. So they crawl the websites. And so think of it like one of those jobs boards that they don't have to pay for. So this is another really good resource for you. All right. Social media can be used as well. Just like every facility has a website, almost every facility also has a social media channel. So one of our most active ones in our community is Brooksville Healthcare. They are very active on their social media channel. They post all kinds of stuff, but when they have openings, it goes on social media. So look, if you know that you want to work at Brooksville Healthcare, take a look at their Facebook page. Sometimes they'll offer sign-on bonuses. Sometimes they'll offer open interviews. They do all kinds of stuff to help boost their staff participation. So social media can be your helper there. But this is probably the best way to get employed. Everybody knows somebody that works in healthcare. Think it's the dominant industry in our county, right? We don't have manufacturing. We don't have, all this other stuff. We have healthcare. So if you think about your network, you know somebody that works in healthcare. So if you go to them and you say, hey, Betty, I know you work in healthcare. Where do you work? What do you do? And she says, oh, well, I work at this nursing home and I run their activities department or whatever. Your next question should be, are they hiring? Because if they hire you, if she refers you and they hire you, usually she'll get a bonus and so will you. They would rather give that bonus to their employees than an online jobs listing. Okay. So this could work out in your favor. Not only do you get a job, but you might get a bonus for being referred. Now, the other reason that this is a good idea, anybody ever worked somewhere where you didn't like the people you were working with? Like you had personality conflicts, right? It happens. There's lots of personality conflicts out there. Well, if I'm referring you for a position, that means that we already get along. I'm okay working with you, and you're okay working with me. So by developing a staff base based on referrals, you're working with people that already get along. So you reduce the amount of staff conflicts, theoretically. Does that make sense? So this is why referrals might be the best bet for you to find a job. Networking. So other opportunities, you can visit facilities in person. This is kind of going away a little bit because most places just don't have time to talk to you if you drop in unexpectedly. Might be worth a shot. Just shake hands and say, hey, I put an application in. Just wanted you to be able to put a face with a name. That, no harm in that. But understand that they're pretty busy. So if they brush you off, don't take it personally. Job fairs, always a good option. Community events and trade magazines. There's a job fair coming up. I want to say it's in August. If you check the Hernando County Chamber of Commerce, I think that they've got some information on this. All the local employers in our area are trying to get me to do a job fair here. They all want you. They all want you. I have turned down at least 6 employers that wanted to come in here today and talk to you guys. Now, if I let one in, I got to let them all in, and then we get nothing done. So you're in demand out there. Trust me, you are in demand. I've got some flyers up there for you and some stuff on the table. Those are all employers that have come in and dropped stuff off. But, and when I hear of a hot opportunity, something that needs to be filled right now that aren't going to go through our normal channels, I will send you an email to my previous students just to let you know. I just sent one out last class. It was a private hire, somebody that needed help with her mother. So I sent that to my last class. I don't charge for that. I just send it out. So if you're getting our emails, don't unsubscribe from us if you want to have access to those job tips. Trade magazines, of course, can have some opportunities as well. So now let's talk about application. We've talked about this. Make sure your application matches the job description. So if it says BLS, write BLS, not CPR. You want to apply to all the positions listed and apply again if you don't get a response. A lot of times it takes multiple applications to get hired. It's a process. Page 175 is going to talk to you about interview tips. Dress to impress. In one of the CNA groups today, somebody said that they were getting ready to go to an interview. What should they wear? Business professional is always appropriate. Absolutely. If you've got nice dress slacks and a dress shirt, put it on. That's fine. But there's an old saying, dress for the job you intend to get. So what do CNAs wear? Yeah, so it is appropriate to wear scrubs for an interview. It is appropriate, but they need to be neat, clean, pressed, so lines in them. If you don't know your way around an iron, take it to a dry cleaner. They will press it and put nice lines in there. Don't just take them out of the dryer and shake them off, and put them on like we do for class. We want something a little nicer than that. If you have visible tattoos, they should be covered until you find out what their tattoo policy is. So a long sleeve shirt underneath or a jacket over, either way is appropriate. But until you find out what their tattoo policy is. I had a student one time tell me they can't discriminate against tattoos. Oh, yes, they can. You are being paid to represent the company's values, not yours. So as the employer, I can dictate that tattoos are covered up. Now, this is way more lenient than it used to be, right? You guys have normalized tattoos. They're not as strict as they used to be, but you still want to find out what their tattoo policy is. But scrubs are appropriate. Closed-toed shoes, of course, no sandals. Solid color scrubs is best. Darker colors are best. That's why you guys are in the colors that you're in. These are great interview outfits. Okay. Arrive early, 10 to 15 minutes early, not Tuesday early. One of the things that I do, anytime I go for an interview, I understand that I am there to interview them as much as they're there to interview me. Because I'm not going to spend 8 or 12 hours out of my day in a place that I absolutely hate. I'm not going to do it. So I want to make sure that this place is going to work for me, not just for them, right? So when I go early and I'm sitting in the waiting room, waiting for my interview, I am looking, how clean is the place? How friendly are the staff? How do they interact with each other? I'm looking at those call lights. How long are the call lights going off before somebody answers them? I'm using my nose. What does the facility smell like? Because if it smells really bad, I know that that's going to bother me long term. So I'm not going to, I'm not looking for a job. Right? If you're just looking for a job, McDonald's is hiring. Okay. I'm not looking for a job. I'm looking for a place to belong. And in order to find that out, I want to use my senses to make sure this is a good fit for me. So I'm going to get there 10 or 15 minutes early to make my judgment as well. I also am going to pay attention to how the receptionist greets me. The receptionists will set the tone for the facility. They do. They do. The other thing is that the receptionist will also tell the hiring manager what they think about you. Yeah. Oh, man, the reception is gossip central, guys. Yep. Phone is always ringing. Absolutely. Absolutely. But remember that they're watching you as well. So make a good impression. I'll tell you one story. So interview, this is at a nursing home that I worked at. A girl comes in to interview. I don't know what she was interviewing for. I have no idea. But she comes in and she sits down in the lobby, doesn't tell anybody that she's there for the interview, doesn't check in or anything. She just comes in and sits down. And there were some other people. I don't know the whole parameters of this. I heard about it afterwards, some other people. Well, anyway, a potential patient comes in on a walker, can barely walk, right? Comes in. And the person interviewing did not get up and give that person their seat. Let the infirm patient, going to be a patient, stand for a significant amount of time. They did not get the job. The receptionist picked up on that. And they did not get the job. So yeah, the receptionist can absolutely cost you your job.
They probably could have had a bad interview, but if they would have did that, they probably still have the job.
Yeah. Yeah. Did not get the job. So even little things like that, you know, so make sure you're paying attention. Everything you do is a reflection of how you're going to be as a CNA. Good. Be odor neutral. Don't smell really good. Don't smell really bad. Let me talk to you about smoking real quick. Doesn't matter what you smoke. Okay. You do not want to smell like smoke. Every facility is now a non-smoking campus. That means that if I catch odors on you, I'm not going to hire you. I'm just flat out not going to. And the reason is because it's a non-smoking campus for you to smoke, and that includes vapes, by the way, includes vapes. For you to smoke, if you take a smoke break, 15 minutes, you have to leave the campus to go have a cigarette. You're not going to make it in 15 minutes. That means that your breaks are going to be 20, 25, 30 minutes long. Other people are going to have to cover for you. That's going to be a problem for management because they're going to have to hear it. And they're just not going to hire you. So be careful. Even vapes sometimes leave an odor. So be careful about that. You want to be odor neutral. Smile. Look like you want to be there. I actually interviewed somebody for the store. She never smiled once. Never smiled once. I'm not going to hire you because I need somebody that's friendly, that even under pressure, trust me, it is not easy to work next door. It is not easy. Those people have unrealistic expectations. And I need you to be able to smile even when you don't want to. So healthcare is the same way. Make eye contact. Remember, half of our job is observation. If you can't make eye contact in the interview, you're not going to make eye contact in a stressful emergency situation when I need input. You're not going to be making observations. Shake hands firmly. I do want to talk about this. No one's teaching handshaking anymore, and I don't know why. But people aren't learning it in schools. When you shake a hand, it is not like this. Nobody is kissing your ring. Hand out, thumb up, grasp the hand once up, once down, and withdraw. Don't try to win an arm wrestling contest. That's not what this is about. But you never shake hands sitting down. You have to stand up to shake a hand. You always want to be on the same level as somebody that's shaking your hand. So if a manager comes out to shake your hand and you're sitting there waiting for them, you stand up before you shake their hand. And I don't know why that's not being taught in schools anymore. And that's why I want to bring it up, because a lot of people will say, I never heard that. Be careful there, because it's a psychological reaction. Answer questions thoroughly. Ask questions at the end of the interview. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Leave your family, friends, and pets at home. So let me tell you 2 stories about this. So the first one, I didn't actually see, but I heard about it. Girl comes in to interview at the nursing home. And before she comes in, an older woman on a walker comes in and sits down. Girl comes in, checks in for the interview, goes to the back, interviews with the director of nurses. And the director asked her, so what kind of experience do you have? And she says, oh, I've been doing in-home care for about 5 years now, taking care of this lady. I do a great job. She's getting ready to go into facility, so I'm looking for something a little, whatever. She says, hold on a minute. The girl interviewing runs out to the waiting room, gets this lady and brings her into the interview and says, tell her what a good job I do for you. Don't bring your references with you. The DON's like, what am I supposed to do with this? I mean, what do you say to, oh my gosh, don't do that. Don't. I get that she's a reference and that's great, but don't bring them with you. So now let me tell you about pets. Now I have a brand new puppy. He is 4 months old. I love him to pieces. He's adorable. He is a Beagle Labradoodle mix. We call him a Broodle. He was an accident. We had a Beagle that we had rescued, and we got a brand new Labradoodle from birth, and she got to be about a year old, and they got together, and now we have a Broodle. I love him. He looks like a little Fraggle, like a Muppet. He's adorable. I love him to pieces. But I don't bring him to work with me because it's not really professional, right? Although it does break my heart to leave him at home. So years ago, I was working over in Orlando, and our shift supervisor, unit supervisor, was on maternity leave, and I was filling in. And her office was literally a closet. Like, it was smaller than that bathroom. It was tiny. Well, this was a very old hospital in Orlando, and I'm interviewing this nurse, to do the preliminary interview. And as I'm interviewing her, I'm hearing this scuffling sound, right? And I'm like, what is that? What is that? What does it sound? Well, on the other side of our unit, on the other side of the wall, they were doing some construction, some renovation. So I'm thinking maybe they disturbed some little baby mice or something, right? So I got to get her out of this office before a mouse runs across her foot and she freaks out. So I said, let's go for a tour of the unit. So I get her out of the office. We go around the unit, introduce her to some people. We go to the break room. I'm going to finish the interview in the break room. We sit down at the table, and I'm still hearing this scuffling sound. I'm like, what is that? And she says, what is what? I said, that sound. I'm hearing like a scuffling sound. And she says, oh, you're hearing Precious. What's a Precious? She says, oh, it's my little teacup something. I don't know, this little tiny something. And I said, oh, you brought your dog to an interview. And she totally missed totally missed what I was getting at there. And she says, oh, yes, Precious goes with me everywhere. She has separation anxiety. And I said, so what is going to happen with Precious if you come to work? And she says, oh, she just stays in this little carrier. See, you didn't even see her. You didn't even know she was here. She'll just stay in the carrier in the, she had a purse that had like vent hole. I don't know. It was weird. He stays in the break room. I'm like, okay, thank you so much. We'll be in touch. And she did not get the job. We cannot have animals in a clinical setting. So I know why she was looking for a job now. So as much as I love animals, and I do, they have no place at work. And they definitely don't have a place in an interview. So please be careful not to bring things in that you might think are a good idea that really aren't. Okay. All right. Be prepared and send a thank you note. We're going to talk about that in just a second. So we're going to dress neatly in business casual or in scrubs. Just make sure that you look professional. And we're going to make a packet to take with us to the interview. Now, this packet is way more important than you think it is. I have information on this packet in your skills book. Get the skills book here. Okay. Yes. Yeah, what's your name?
What is that you're going through?
These are the graduation packets. There you go. Thank you. Okay. So this packet is super important for you to make up. In your skills book, on page 174, in the middle of the second column, you'll have all of the things that need to be in your packet. This is important because when you go for the interview and you leave, they have to remember you in order to hire you. You don't have anything to make you stand out at this point. You're brand new. You've got a great personality, but that's not going to be enough to compete against everybody else. So by leaving a packet, it is a way of them remembering you even after you leave. So at the end of the day, when they're cleaning up their desk to go home, they're going to come across your packet and go, oh yeah, that's right. I remember Autumn. She interviewed earlier this morning. Let me look through her packet. So it's a way of getting back in front of the interviewers without physically having to be there, because they usually interview 5, 6, 7 people a day, and you're going to kind of blend into. You want something to make you stand out. But the other thing is, and probably more important, if I want to hire you, I have to have all of these things in your employee folder. If I have to call you up and say, hey, I would like to hire you, but I need these things, you've got to get them together, get them to human resources. They have to check them in, let me know you're good to go, and then I can call and hire you. Or I can just pick up the phone and say, hey, you want to start Monday? If you've already got everything there, you make it easy for them to hire you. So make the packet. The packet is really what's going to get you hired because you make it easy for them. The name of the game is being remembered. When you go to the interview, be present. Be present. Make sure that you're making eye contact, you're listening to what they're offering, and that they're saying that you're answering the questions, that you're not just trying to get out quickly. You need to be prepared and confident, but you also need to be prepared to explain why you should be hired versus everybody else. What makes you relevant? You've got to have an answer to that because they're going to ask. And if you don't have an answer for that, you're not really going to be able to sell yourself very well. Okay. All right. Now we have this. Tell me a little bit about yourself. This is the question everybody dreads. Nobody likes this question, including me. But I did devise an easy way for you to answer it. So this is today's review sheet. And on the back of today's review sheet, looks kind of like a little Mad Libs game. And we are going to do this together. Okay, so if somebody says, tell me a little bit about yourself, and you go, I was born in Virginia, and then mommy and daddy got divorced, and I moved in with Grammy in Florida, and then I went to school, and then I got married and had a couple kids, and I can't get out of Florida because I don't have enough money. That doesn't help them. That gives them no information on why. What that tells them is as soon as you get money, you're out of Florida, right? That doesn't help you. You need a statement that will help them understand your worth. And we're going to craft one together. There's actually a formula we can use. It's a formula. Pretty cool. So what we need to know is our past job roles. How many of you guys have been servers? Anybody? No servers? Kind of? Okay. How many of you have worked in customer service in some way? Okay. All right. Retail? Okay. Manufacturing? Okay. All right. So you've got some skills. You just don't really know how to translate them into medical. So I'm going to help you with that. You've got some skills. So we want to look at 3 soft skills that we developed in those job roles. We want to know why we want to work in healthcare, and then we have to find 3 positive personality traits. So to do that, we're going to use lists. And these lists are similar to what you have on your paper. So the first thing I want you to do on this paper here, right, is list some of your most recent job roles. What were you? What are you now? List some of your most recent job roles. And then once you do that, the first section here, we want to look at our soft skills. So in those job roles, what soft skills did you develop? So for me, if I'm looking at this, right, I probably have a lot of these, but I'm going to pick my top 3. So for me, attention to detail. I am very detailed. That's what created this whole program. Very detailed. I have great attention to detail. I also have great communication skills. I listen to understand, not to respond. And professionalism, I'm pretty good at that too. Okay. So those would be my 3 soft skills that I developed in my career. Now, once I have that, I need to figure out why I want to be a CNA. So what brought you to class? Are you looking for a career with advancement opportunities? Are you looking for something that has some flexibility in your schedule? Are you looking because you want to care for, this would be mine. I want the opportunity to care for others. I am a carer. I'm a caregiver. Also a problem solver, which can often lead me to conflict. Because caregivers and problem solvers are 2 different things. But you have to figure out, why are you here? What brought you to you did not see an advertisement for this, because I don't advertise. I do not advertise, and yet the classes fill. So that means you guys decided to find me. Why? Why? So you have to figure out your why. And then once you do that, you got to look at your own personality. So why should they hire you? What are some positive personality traits that you have? Are you honest, dependable, dedicated, flexible? What kind of personality traits do you have? And you circle 3 of those. And then we put this all together. We put all of these things together into a statement. So my past experience has been as a housekeeper in a clinical setting where I developed attention to detail, time management, and prioritization skills. But I really wanted something where I could have more hands-on care and more impact on the patients. So I took a CNA class. And now I'm looking to enter healthcare. And I believe I would be a good fit for your facility because I'm honest, I'm dependable, and I'm ethical. That is how you answer, tell me a little bit about yourself. Good? Now, all of you will have your very own tell me a little bit about yourself speech. And no 2 are exactly alike because you've got different roles that you've held. You've got different reasons for getting into healthcare. You've all got different personality traits. Okay, good. And you can use this in any industry. This isn't limited to medical. Pretty cool, right? Yeah, this is probably the one thing I will advertise at some point because this works for every industry. After the interview, you should send a thank you card. Now, for me, when I interviewed for opportunities, this was part of my interview process. I always had it in my car. It was already filled out. So all I had to do was write the name of the person that I interviewed with. On the inside, it's dear, and I left it blank for right now. Thank you for the opportunity to interview with you. I look forward to your decision. Please let me know if you need any additional documentation or information. Sincerely, my name. and then had the envelope already made out. So when I got out of the interview into my car, I wrote down the name of the person I interviewed with on the card, put it in, and drove directly to the post office, put it in the slot. And when you do that, that card is going to be delivered the next day. Again, you can't be hired if you aren't remembered. So getting something in the mail from you will help the person remember who you are. It's a great way of getting hired. How bad do you want the job? That's how much effort you'll put into the hiring process. Okay. Now you can send an email. It is appropriate to send emails, but guys, I get 400 emails a day. I don't go through them all. And if I see something that says thank you for, the interview, I'm just going to mark it as read and move on. I'm not going to read it. It's impersonal. It's filling up my folder. I'm trying to get to inbox 0 and you're in my way. Okay. You guys see how that might be construed? Now, if I get a letter in the mail, like a real something in an envelope with a stamp, man, I'm going to pay attention to that because the only thing I ever get in the mail are bills, right? So thank you cards do way better than thank you emails.
You put your contact information in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Make it easy. Yeah. When they're holding that card, I want them to pick up their phone and dial the number that's on that card and say you're hired. I want it easy. Sometimes you're going to be offered a PRN position. PRN just means as needed. That's all PRN means, as needed. It's not an on-call position. It's a scheduled position, but it's not a regularly scheduled position. The nice thing about PRN is that you get to tell them when you can and cannot work. So if I'm only available on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I can tell them I'm only available on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if they have an opening on a Tuesday or a Thursday, it's going to be mine. PRN positions, you can also tell them, no, I don't want to work the entire month of August. I'm going cross country. And there's no problem with that. Where when you're full time, you've got to arrange for vacation days and somebody to cover and all that. So PRN positions are really good. Now, they don't have benefits, but they do have a higher rate of pay. So if you're in it for the dollars, PRN is a good position. Dollars and flexibility. If you need benefits, PRN is not what you want. As needed. As needed. Yep. Supplemental staff. Most first positions in healthcare are PRN positions. Very rarely will you get a full-time spot right out of the gate, and that's because we don't know you. If you come to work for me and I don't like you for whatever reason, you're slow to answer call lights, whatever. I don't like the color of your hair. I don't care what it is. If I don't like you, it takes me a long time to get rid of you. Even though Florida is a right to work state, we still have employee protection protocols. I can't just fire you for no reason without some sort of retaliation. So it's really hard to get rid of people. I have to do verbal warnings and then written warnings and then remediation and all this stuff. Now, in the meantime, you're taking crappy care of my patients and I'm the one that's liable. So if I hire you PRN and we kind of give you a trial run to see how you're going to do, if I don't like you, I just don't put you on the schedule. You're not fired. There's just no room for you. Eventually, it'll work itself out. See how that works? So if you're offered a PRN position, take it because it may work into a full-time. It's kind of like a paid interview process. We have other learning opportunities. Just because you're leaving us doesn't mean we're leaving you. You have a lot of opportunities here. Of course, the game show we had yesterday. We do that twice a month, and those are good practice questions for you to get ready for the test. You have the online course that you are all enrolled in. You have the skills videos on For Your CNA. You have your book, and you have this room available for you for practice as well. If you can't come in here and practice, you need to purchase a practice kit so you can get used to all of the supplies and how they work before the test. So come in here and practice. It's free Mondays and Wednesdays, 1:30 to 4. It's on the back of your ID badge. If you can't come in here, buy a practice kit. It will help you. The worst thing to do is to get to the test and not have any idea how a gait belt works, because that is the skill you will end up getting if you don't know how a gait belt works. Okay? So please make sure that you remember that you have all this available. We also have a practice test for you on page 191. This is very similar to the state exam. Answer key is in the back, just like everything else. If you take this practice test and you miss 5 or fewer, you are ready for the written test. If you miss more than 5, you are not ready for the written test, and you need to go through the online course or read the lessons in the book that you skipped, or whatever the case may be. If you went through my course and you're missing more than 5 on this test, something is very wrong. Very wrong. Okay? You guys are well prepared for the written test, and this will give you a good idea of that. I've never had a student that missed less than 5 on this test and failed the written. Never had a student that did that. Don't be the first. I want my record unblemished. Okay? So the practice test is available for you. Practice kit is also available. You can purchase it. It has all the supplies you need to be able to practice for the state exam. And then we also have these other resources that you have available. Oh, by the way, the practice kit right now is only $45.99 through today. After today, it goes back up to, I think it's $65.99 on the website. We have the flashcards. They're $14.99 through today. After today, they go back up to $24.99.
Where do you find the answer to this practice test?
Very last page. Very last page.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Card game, really fun way of preparing for the test, and you can play it with anyone not in medical as well. Card game is here. When you guys are in here practicing, this is the classroom copy. You can play with the card game as well. And then the practice room is on the back of your ID badge there in the lower corner. Remember, you have that online course for 12 months and the game show twice a month. We are now going to return the yellow book. Well, okay. So what happens here is I am going to hold your folders until I get the book back.
When does the store close?
5 p.m.
Bring it back.
Yep, and he'll give you the folder for the book. Okay. So if I can get you guys to bring your yellow books and put them right here on my table, we're going to go out front and take a class photo. It's going to be posted to Facebook. You'll have to tag yourself. But before we do that, I'm going to sign off of our online course, online live stream, because from this point on, there's nothing that they can gain out of the rest of the class today. So for those of you who have joined us, thank you so much for joining us. This is the end of this class session. Next one will start July 22nd. It is already full. So I've had to close enrollment yesterday. So feel free to join us on July 22nd. And that's for you guys too. If you're getting ready to test and you want that refresher, watch the online live stream. You guys all have access to that. Game show will be in 2 weeks from yesterday, if you want to catch that again. And thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Until then, happy caregiving. Bye.